Hey everyone, my name is Catalyst, and welcome back to the How to Not Suck series, the grammatically incorrect series that teaches you how to play Battlefield. Today's episode of the How to Not Suck series is going to be one that provides some updates to the original series and retcons some of the videos that are now outdated, since some of these original episodes came out well over a year ago, and these specialists have undergone quite a few changes. Obviously, it would be a little tedious to remake every single episode, especially since some specialists have undergone more changes than others, so I'm going to do my best to summarize the key changes for almost every specialist in this video, and if you want further analysis, you can watch the original episode. This video will also have been posted as the pinned comment in every How to Not Suck episode, so if you're coming from there, I would suggest keeping the original video up in a different tab for your own reference. Oh, and whereas the original videos also included my thoughts on each specialist and I ranked them amongst each other, I won't be doing that in today's video as I made a power rankings video just last week. You can find my updated thoughts on each specialist there. So hopefully some of you find this video useful. Leave a like if you do, and leave a comment if I end up missing anything. Okay, let's get started. Thankfully for the runtime of this video, we can go ahead and eliminate a few specialists, since there are some specialists that have changed only slightly, if they've even changed at all, and of course that is Blasco and Zayn, since they are the two most recent specialists. If by chance you're coming from those videos looking for information on those specialists, I hate to toss you guys around like this, but you're probably safe watching the original video as it's still pretty accurate. Blasco's kit has remained untouched for the most part since she released, and there isn't really anything that's changed other than bug fixes to her X6 infiltration device. As for Zayn, nothing has changed with his kit either, apart from some small nerfs to the airburst AoE range, but just as a quick tutorial, because some people don't actually know how to use the airburst, when you initially ADS with the airburst, you will be dialed into a specific range, and it's easy enough to hit people when they're out in the open. But when firing at people behind cover, which is the intended use of the airburst, you need to redial in the range and fire slightly above or around the cover that your targets are hiding behind. Since the airburst relies on splash damage, you want to give it the space to explode and do damage. So just firing at people behind cover or at people's feet will not be effective because the rounds don't have any place to explode. I see a lot of people just flinging shells around expecting to get kills and getting nothing but maybe 1 or 2 hit markers in the 5-round magazine. So these rounds do need some room to do damage. You need to allow that room in order for the airburst to be effective. Okay, with that out of the way, I think I'm going to go class to class here, so I think that takes us to McKay. A couple of small things that have changed for McKay since his How to Not Suck episode in January of 2022. First and foremost, the range of his grapple hook has been reduced from 35 meters to 25 meters, which if you are wondering how far away 25 meters is, it's about, this high, or about as tall as a trip from the ground to the top of the ship on Stranded. His passive trait, Nimble, has also received a bit of a rework in which the strafe speed is a bit slower, and every other specialist in the game got increased strafe speed, but to be completely honest with you, it's not that noticeable. It could be more if you're asking my opinion. Now, something important to note, the mechanic where you can cheese the cooldown of your grapple hook still works. So if you didn't know, if you fire your grapple hook at anything under 7 meters, you will not be charged with using your grapple hook, and it will not be put on cooldown. So this is particularly useful on maps like Manifest, where you might need multiple grapples to get up to where you want to go, or are trying to reach something stealthily or something that's just out of your vaulting range. Otherwise, the cooldown for the grapple hook is 10 seconds. Some other notable amendments to that video: you can no longer grapple onto the smoke cloud, and you can also no longer grapple onto throwable items such as grenades. You can still grapple onto moving vehicles and ride them, so to speak, and as a finishing point, most of the movement tech showcased in the McKay guide is still viable, including being able to strafe while on the grapple, detaching yourself from the grapple early to get a little bit more height, and slingshotting yourself with the grapple and bunny hopping for more advanced movement. Moving on to Dozer here, who has been the beneficiary of some buffs in the most recent update. Not only can you zipline with Dozer's shield out now, but you can also slide and jump with the shield. It is important to note that you can't chain movement like that while using the shield, so you can't slide jump like you would with any other specialist while you have the shield equipped. Now, Dozer also got a buff to his movement speed while using the shield. Is it comparable with the tactical sprint speed? Can we keep up with enemies that are running away from us? Well, let's take a look here. Well, it starts off closer than you'd think, but then regular character movement speed overtakes the movement with the shield as expected, and the shield can't keep up. But I think it's worth noting that Dozer can keep up within the ranges that you'd expect his shield to be most effective, and to be honest, if you're running away from a Dozer for that long, I think odds are that he just puts away his shield and tries to shoot you in the back. Also, something important that I noticed in testing Dozer for this video, there is some snap aim assist with the shield, so to speak. Now, this might not be news to you, but as somebody that is basically steered as far away as possible from this specialist up until recently, you don't actually have to be dead on target for the shield bash to work, as you can see here. You can be off target, and the shield will sort of jump towards the target in your immediate vicinity and kill them. So keep this in mind that this is about how close you need to be in order to get the kill while using the shield. Now coming to the specialist with likely the most changes in this video, since they were actually the first How to Not Suck episode, Sundance has changed an incredible amount. First, with the obvious, DICE have since removed the EMP grenades and anti-armor grenades from their kit, and now you only have one scatter grenade that replenishes every 15 seconds. Sundance's wingsuit has also changed since that episode as well, pertaining to how she gains speed in the air. Previously, when Sundance jumped, they had a faster initial velocity on the jump, but now that initial velocity on jump is much slower to incentivize jumping from higher locations. It's certainly more realistic, but it did kill a lot of the fun of the character, if you ask me. So now the focus is on gaining speed from higher altitudes. With that said, jumping still works essentially the same. Whether or not your wingsuit actually deploys is relative to the distance between your jumping off point and the ground, not the airtime in between. So a good Sundance can find jumping off points on low terrain if that distance is high enough. And a final point on the wingsuit, you used to have to worry about flying too fast, but now you can quite literally dive down at the steepest angle the game allows you to, and you'll live. You'll lose maybe 20 HP and bounce up like nothing happened. My god, they neutered this specialist. Okay, so that takes us into the engineer class, starting with Liz. Liz's kit mostly works the same as it did in her episode, but there have been quite a few tweaks to her TGM-84. The range of the TGM TV missile is now 500 meters of travel time instead of 450. Meanwhile, the velocity of the missile has been slightly decreased. It doesn't matter how you slice it. If you turn it or burn it in a straight line, 500 meters is the cutoff, and that doesn't change with the afterburner. It's still 500 meters. You obviously just reach that cutoff a little bit faster. The rocket can still be destroyed by small arms fire while in the air, and it does still continue its trajectory even after you leave the TV suite. So if you find a target and you are aiming down on it and want to leave the missile early, you can do so, and it still will hit the target if, of course, you are on target. One thing with Liz, though, that a subscriber pointed out to me, since the missile acts as a vehicle in its own way, increasing your vehicle aim sensitivity may actually help you with turning the rocket around if you struggle with that. So if you're having trouble with that, consider turning your sensitivity up. For Boris, he was nerfed pretty hard since his episode. As most of you probably know by now, his turret no longer spots through walls, but instead simply spots enemies on the minimap for you and your team. This is not always consistent, however, as the turret is programmed to target vehicles first, and if no vehicle is within the 25 meters of the turret, then it targets infantry. Boris's passive ability increases the effectiveness of the turret the closer you are to it, and as far as I can tell, this is directly linked to how fast it takes the turret to fire its 5-round burst once it's locked onto the enemy. Let me clarify, it doesn't increase the speed of the burst, just the time it takes to begin the burst. As for Crawford, he has had the most changes out of all the engineer class specialists. His passive ability, which used to be gadget refill on revive, has since been given to Irish and has been replaced with a repair speed passive that increases the repair rate while using the repair tool on a vehicle in critical condition. Just how fast is that repairing? Well, here's another side by side. As you can see, there is a portion marked by UI that shows you the amount of damage that you can heal while using the increased repair speed. After that, the tool repairs the same speed as on every other engineer specialist. So in a situation in which I put 2 C5 on a super hind and repaired it with 2 different engineer specialists, Crawford was faster overall, but not by an overwhelming margin. But that's not really the point of the ability. It's meant to be a lifeline for a heavily damaged vehicle, and it gives Crawford some more value this way. Crawford's Vulcan minigun has also been changed to do more damage to vehicles and has increased spread, which makes it less effective against infantry as it was prior to his big change. Moving on now to the support class, Falk has basically seen no changes to her kit since her episode. The only thing that's changed with her is my opinion on her. And again, we aren't really talking about that today. As for Irish has had a few changes to his kit since his episode, some recent, some not. First and foremost, Irish's ability to gain armor off the resupply packs of dead enemies is now completely removed, as is his armor on his first initial spawn. And as mentioned just a bit ago, his passive ability now allows him to give gadget ammo to friendlies that he revives, which was formerly Crawford's passive. Now more recently, Irish's APS system got a bunch of changes. The functionality of the APS is now a little bit different. The APS will have a 1-second boot up time once you place it down, and once it's placed and booted up, it will enter a search state where it will actively search for incoming explosives to destroy, and the moment that it detects and destroys an explosive, it will catch every subsequent explosive in range for the next 5 seconds before entering a down state that lasts around 7 seconds. As I'm sure you've noticed, you also get visual feedback now as to whether or not your explosives got destroyed by an Irish APS. In terms of things that don't get intercepted by Irish's APS system, EMP grenades, C5, and tank shells will not get stopped by the APS. C5 used to get stopped by the APS, but now it's been changed to where C5 passes through undetected. The shield, on the other hand, works the same as it always has, and you can still use the shield to block stairs and doorways to make traversal harder for enemies. As for Angel had one big nerf ages ago, but still the nerf happened after his How to Not Suck episode, so we gotta talk about it. In DICE's effort to minimize armor in the game, Angel no longer provides armor from his resupply pouches, just ammo, and you regenerate a new ammo pouch every 10 seconds. Likewise with Angel's loadout crate, the loadout crate takes 10 seconds from calling it in to land at the marked spot. However, once that loadout crate lands, you can immediately call in another one. There is no cooldown once the crate lands. The time it takes to land is essentially its own cooldown. Now there have been some UI improvements here, as you can press the action key on the crate to resupply, or you can hold it to change your loadout, and you can do this once every 30 seconds. Okay, wrapping up here with the Recon class, as we already said, no need to really talk about Blasco since she's so new, nothing's really changed, but everyone else, there is definitely a lot to talk about. With Casper, his Recon drone has the ability to EMP vehicles and other specialist devices. You can do this once every 10 seconds if you are within range, which, speaking of the range of Casper's Recon drone, it's 200 meters, so you can't go farther than 200 meters away from Casper. You can also not C5 drone anymore, as putting C5 on the drone will weigh the drone down and make it almost useless. For Paik, her ability has also been heavily nerfed since her episode in the series. The EMG scanner only lasts for 8 seconds, and instead of highlighting enemies through walls, any enemies that you spot during this ability faintly appear with every pulse. This ability still has a lengthy cooldown of about 28 seconds, so it definitely has less value now. Her passive has also changed since the previous passive was given to Rao, who we'll get to in a second. Paik's passive now allows her to spot enemies that she does damage to on the minimap for her entire team, and this spot lasts around 8 seconds. And finally, to wrap up with Rao, his hacking abilities have seen quite a few tweaks. Not only does hacking now take a few more seconds to complete, but once you complete a hack, that hack lasts for 15 seconds before you can hack a vehicle again. So the hack may take longer to complete, but it does last a little bit longer, and you can hack any vehicle within a 100-meter radius. But it only hacks the weapons of the vehicles for a very short time, which I was under the impression that hacking a vehicle took down its weapons for the entire duration of the hack, but apparently I was wrong. Additionally, the ability to hack infantry is almost instant now, and the range of the spotting that you get from killing a hacked enemy is actually quite large. I was seeing people highlighted up to 50 meters away. And finally, as I said previously, Rao's passive ability is now that people that do damage to him get instantly spotted for him, and they become highlighted, which was previously Paik's ability. Oh, and you can still hack rangers, Boris turrets, and other equipment and these things if you really wanted to. And that's the end of the video, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you found something useful. Again, this is more just to update the guides that we already made. I'm sure a lot of this you probably already know, especially if you're in the loop, but in case you're a new player and you're wondering why in all these old videos something is different now, this is the updated guide. These are some of the changes and some of the discrepancies between some of my older videos and the way that the game is now. So if you enjoyed it, drop a like, leave a comment. It definitely helps me in the algorithm. Subscribe for more content, and thank you all so much for watching. My name is Catalyst. I'll see you all another time.